INTJs are private, independent thinkers who value their autonomy and personal space. While they can be incredibly loyal, they don't take kindly to anything that threatens their sense of control or invades their boundaries. If you've ever wondered how to avoid pushing an INTJ to their breaking point, here are 8 creepy things you should never do to them. From manipulative tactics to blatant disrespect, these behaviors will not only make you the object of their disdain, but will likely result in them shutting you out for good. So if you're around an INTJ, learn what to avoid. And if you're an INTJ, these tips are for you to recognize and call out immediately. Let's dive into the cold, hard truths about what can really creep out an INTJ. 1. Attempting to control their actions or decisions. INTJs value independence above all else. Any attempt to control their decisions, whether it's pushing them into something they don't want to do or trying to manipulate their choices, is a fast track to making them distrust you. They don't like being told what to do, and they certainly don't like when someone assumes they can control their actions. INTJs will quickly recognize any effort to control them and will shut down any form of emotional manipulation with cold precision. They don't tolerate being pushed around and will either distance themselves from you or straight up dismiss you. If you're trying to control an INTJ's decisions, you're only setting yourself up for failure. They value logic and autonomy. If you can't respect that, they won't give you the time of day. In the end, they will pull away from anyone who even tries to exert that kind of influence on them. 2. Trying to guilt trip them into feeling responsible for you. INTJs are often seen as stoic, logical thinkers who prioritize reason over emotion. So when someone tries to guilt trip them, it feels completely manipulative and out of place. Trying to make an INTJ feel responsible for your emotional state or guilt them into doing something is one of the fastest ways to break their trust. They don't need to be reminded of their obligations. They already know what they owe themselves and others. When they sense someone is trying to emotionally manipulate them through guilt, they'll detach themselves immediately. They don't play games when it comes to emotional responsibility and will see through any attempt at guilt tripping. To them, it's not only manipulative but a complete waste of time. If you want an INTJ to keep their distance for good, try guilt tripping them. It's an instant deal breaker. 3. Getting too personal too quickly. While INTJs are naturally curious about others, they value their privacy and don't share their personal lives easily. So when someone starts asking deep, personal questions too early, it can feel like a serious invasion of their space. They're not comfortable with people prying into their thoughts, feelings, or experiences unless they've built a deep, mutual connection. An INTJ needs time and trust before they open up, and forcing them to divulge personal information too soon will only make them shut down or walk away. They don't view vulnerability as a trivial social interaction, and they don't want their life dissected by someone who hasn't earned that privilege. So if you rush them into revealing details they're not ready to share, expect them to retreat. For an INTJ, privacy is sacred. Don't try to break it by probing too much too soon. 4. Hovering or being overly persistent. INTJs are naturally private and need space to think and recharge. If you're constantly hovering around them, trying to force interactions, or being overly persistent in any way, they'll quickly become irritated and repelled. They need time to process information and recharge their energy in solitude, and being constantly interrupted or pushed into social situations will feel like a major intrusion on their personal space. The more you push for attention, the more they'll withdraw from you. An INTJ's instinct is to avoid overbearing or clingy behavior. They want to engage on their terms, not because someone else is demanding their presence or time. If you're persistent in trying to get them to engage when they need space, expect them to distance themselves even further. For an INTJ, space equals sanity, and someone who refuses to respect that boundary is a recipe for getting shut out completely. 5. Disrespecting their intellectual boundaries. INTJs are known for their intellectual prowess, and they expect to be respected in that realm. When someone disrespects their intelligence, dismisses their ideas, or challenges them without a reasonable argument, it's a surefire way to make them lose all respect for you. Debating with an INTJ is fine, as long as it's done with logic and reason, but attempting to belittle or talk down to them is a quick ticket to their disinterest. They are very selective about who they engage with on an intellectual level and won't tolerate shallow thinking or illogical arguments. If you try to argue with them just for the sake of being confrontational or prove your own intelligence at their expense, you're not just making them uninterested, you're also pushing them to distance themselves entirely. For an INTJ, intellectual respect is non-negotiable. Fail to meet their standard, and you'll find yourself outside their circle. 6. Pushing them to conform to social norms. INTJs are notorious for their disdain for social norms and conventional expectations. They prefer to follow their own path rather than conform to society's idea of what's normal. If you try to force them to fit into a mold, whether it's about relationships, career choices, or social behavior, it's bound to feel like a major violation of their sense of self. INTJs value their individuality above all else, and any attempt to pressure them into conformity will likely result in them shutting down or outright rejecting you. They are not interested in fitting into a social group or adhering to rules that don't make sense to them, and pushing them to do so will only make them more determined to stay true to their unique perspective. Trying to change their mindset or forcing them to do things for the sake of social acceptance will alienate them completely. If you want to keep an INTJ's respect, accept their individuality, it's the only way to avoid the coldest of rejections. 7. Showing up unannounced or invading their personal space. INTJs take solitude seriously, and their personal space is essential for maintaining their mental balance. So when someone shows up unannounced, barges into their life without warning, or intrudes on their private time, it completely violates their boundaries. INTJs don't welcome surprise visits or spontaneous plans without prior notice. They need time to prepare mentally, and anything that disrupts that throws them off balance. Showing up uninvited isn't just rude, it's an assault on their personal space and can leave them feeling incredibly unsettled and violated. They won't hesitate to let you know that this behavior isn't acceptable and will likely distance themselves if it continues. For an INTJ, personal boundaries are sacred, and crossing them can lead to permanent disengagement. If you value your relationship with them, don't violate their personal space. 8. Engaging in passive-aggressive behavior. INTJs value directness and transparency in communication. They don't tolerate passive-aggressive behavior, games, or indirect hints. If you engage in subtle jabs, sarcasm, or expect them to read between the lines to figure out what's wrong, you're bound to get nowhere. INTJs are incredibly perceptive, but they also believe that communication should be straightforward and efficient. Passive-aggressive tactics not only frustrate them, but also waste their time. If you can't be direct, an INTJ will likely choose to cut ties instead of tolerating this kind of game. For them, honesty and clarity are paramount, and any form of passive aggression is a surefire way to make them close off to you permanently. Don't expect them to deal with unclear motives. They'll just move on. Are you an INTJ? If this resonates, you know exactly what it's like when people don't respect your boundaries. Subscribe now for more insights on how to protect your energy and live on your own terms.